Hi everybody, and welcome back to my mini series, my mini midweek series, where I look at a science story and we just sort of cover it together and have a little chat about it. So in today's story, this comes from The New Scientist and it's from October 2023, and this was written by Brian Owens. So thank you very much, Brian Owens, for writing this story. Emergence of cicada generation led to a caterpillar boom. When big broods of cicada emerge every 13 or 17 years, birds are treated to a smorgasbord. Thank you so much, by the way. What is your name? Brian Owens, for that word. I love that word, and I totally forgotten about it until I read this story, and I was like, I love it. Love that word. Anyway, of fresh food. And this sudden glut has a cascading effect on other animals and plants in the ecosystem. John Lill at the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. and his colleagues have investigated the behaviour of birds in the years before, during and after the emergence of the cicada generation, known as Brood X, across eastern US in 2021. The researchers set out dummy caterpillars made of clay and recorded the telltale marks left by the beaks of birds attempting to eat them, which just sounds horrible, right? But hey, anyway, scientists be doing science. In years with no cicadas, about 1/4 of the dummies were attacked each week, but during the short weeks of the cicada season, fewer than 10% showed signs of bird strikes. Lill and his colleagues enlisted bird watchers to observe birds and discovered that more than 80 species were taking part in the all-you-can-eat cicada buffet. I find that amazing. I love this. So having people watch to see bird behaviour, that is citizen science. So you can absolutely get involved in citizen science if it's something that you're interested in. You might already know of it, maybe in your local community. You might have to look out for certain species at certain times of year. I know here in the UK, the RSPB put out the Big Bird Watch, and we also have butterfly surveys as well that we do here in the UK. There might be other things in other countries. Comment below, in your region or your area, are there any sort of citizen science groups that you can get involved in, any way that you can collect data that is then analysed by scientists? I think it's a great way of engaging a community of people in the science that scientists are doing. Otherwise, I think there's this massive detachment between scientists and science, sort of what are scientists doing and how is it affecting people in the real world. Anyway, that was a total tangent, but let's get back into it. So the citizen science, they saw owls, swans, herons and even small songbirds whose beaks we thought would be too small to eat a cicada, says Lill. Some didn't recognise the cicadas as food at first, but they eventually figured it out. Now I find that also really interesting. Sorry, I know that I'm just chatting my way through this story, but so the cicadas, or cicadas, however you say it, they emerge every 13 to 17 years. So birds generally in the wild don't live for very many years. So in captivity, absolutely they will live a long time. I used to look after corvids, and corvids can live for sort of 20 years in captivity, but out in the wild it's generally sort of 3 to 4 years. So if you look at songbirds, they generally don't make it past their first year. So many of these birds over generations have been bred to eat a certain type of thing. Now all of a sudden there's this massive flying thing making a whole load of noise that you have no idea what it is. You've never seen it before, you've got no generational knowledge of seeing this thing before, but you just decide to give it a go. I think that's amazing. I think it's amazing that a bird looks at it and just thinks, I'm just gonna go lick it. I'm gonna go see what it tastes like, and then it's like, wow, actually, you know what, this is not bad. I think that whole idea is just absolutely hilarious. Anyway, so the diet fee adjustment affected caterpillar populations in the forest at large. The team observed more than twice as many caterpillars during cicada season, and those caterpillars caused twice as much damage to trees and leaves as usual. In a normal year, birds regulate insect herbivore damage, but this gets disrupted in cicada years, says Lill. The research gives a preview of what the world with fewer birds would look like, says Lill. Birds are important for regulating insects and regulating insects in forestry and agriculture, he says. Without them, there will be more damage to forests and food crops. So that there is sort of the take home message. So at first, I thought the story was going to go down the lines of how birds figure out that they can eat these things. How does a bird diet change? How is it that a bird's beak is able to adapt to a new food source in one generation where it's never had that generationally before? If you look at birds and if you look at their beaks are designed to be able to consume certain types of foods. So the way the beak is shaped will tell you something about what that bird likely eats. And so I thought the story was going to go down that line. You know, how is it these insect consuming birds can then start to eat a cicada when previously they would eat caterpillars or, I don't know, little flies or whatever. Thought it was quite interesting. But actually it went down a totally different road, which is the damage caused by insects that aren't controlled. So the whole world is in balance. I don't know if that's something that you are aware of. I imagine you are. The whole world is in balance, and everything is a very delicate balancing act, which is why we have the Anthropocene now. So humans have affected our planet so much that things are starting to get a little bit out of control and going a little bit wild because we've affected things. And so we have made things out of balance, which is causing a lot of knock-on effects to a lot of other ecosystems. So what this story is telling us here actually is that when you have a small disruption, like this one-time event where you have a whole load of cicadas and they're absolutely everywhere doing their thing, the birds actually then don't demonstrate their normal behaviours. I'd be interested to know if the food source, if the cicada is much bigger than their original food source, if this gives them higher amounts of protein. Do they produce more eggs? Do they produce more chicks? Are those chicks healthier? Do they live longer? It raises more questions for me than it does answer anything, really. It gives us a really nice sort of snapshot about some research. But actually this could be built upon so much more. What happens to the chicks that are bred from this generation where they have these cicadas? Are the chicks expecting to be able to have access to this type of food source and they don't have it? Do they instantly go back to eating the things like the caterpillars? How does that work? I'm just really interested in that type of thing. So let me know in the comments below what you thought of this story. What did you think of the effects? It's this small sort of micro effect. So we have cicadas have emerged, birds have started to eat them, and now all of a sudden all of these caterpillars are devastating forests and woodlands because they're not being controlled and managed. Did you see that coming? Is that something that you would have thought would have happened? Please let me know down in the comments below. What did you think of the story? Did you find it interesting? Do you like this style of story? I hope you're finding this series interesting. Please let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome day. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much.